Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. I am your host, Ed Dentzel, and I just have one question for you as I start this show. Is there a more annoying sound, like a machine sound, than your next-door neighbor having his carpets cleaned? That constant whine on and on and on. At least, you know, it sounds like a weed blower or something like that, or grass blower. You know, guys go up and down the streets blowing the grass shavings off. But at least that is, you know, they're here and they're gone. You hear it for like a minute, and then they're down the street. But when your next-door neighbor is getting his carpets cleaned, and we know how long that can take sometimes in those places, I think, the clean carpets really milk the time, that will drive you nuts. And that's what went on here in Madeira Beach, Florida. I know I have these, I mean, what would you call them? Rich man problems. Although I'm not rich. But wow, that can really get to you, especially a guy like myself who has to concentrate on a lot of stuff from day to day, from writing to editing to getting ready for this show. That constant, you know, that will drive you nuts. But welcome to the Dentzel Domain. I thought I'd start off with that tonight. You can find my books at Amazon.com. You can do a search for Edward Dentzel there. You can find all of my books. Very proud of those books. The Govetside series and my book Distant. I think I'm going to be delaying the release of my next book, The Comebacks. I think I have to do some really good marketing on it so everybody knows about it. So it's going to be delayed. However, I think that I could put it out today and it'd be fine, but I just don't know how much attention it would get. So I'm going to hold off on that for just a while. I don't know how long a while is right now, but a while. You can email me at edwarddentzel@reagan.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Dentzel Domain, all one word, no space in between. You can go to edwarddentzel.com where you can find all of my old Red State Talk Radio shows. Going back to when I started here last year, June of 2014. You can find my highlight reel there. I'm very proud of that. Very shortly, you're going to be able to find my shows. I did a kind of a test yesterday of putting a show up on YouTube, and it went okay. Not really pleased with how the picture came out. But I can put my shows up there as long as I'm patient with the upload, which takes, as you can imagine, a little bit of time because it's an hour long. But you can find them. You're going to be able to find them there consistently very soon. You can find my shows now on Podbean. You can find them on all reruns. I of course, if you want to hear them first, you got to listen to Red State Talk Radio. But I can always guarantee the day after that, you'll be able to find these shows in multiple locations. Podbean, SoundCloud, in the iTunes Store, in the podcast section. So the Dentzel Domain is spreading. Hope not like a disease. Hopefully like spreading rainbows and unicorns or something more like that, I suppose. And you can also find me on LinkedIn and on Facebook. So I think I've talked enough about that stuff. Let's get to the show. A friend of mine who was listening last night, I was very excited to hear that he listened to the show last night. I was very pleased with that because going way back to our college days, he was the guy that got me into politics. I've talked about him before. But he had asked me a question about, do I think that Donald Trump has jumped the shark? And you know that I talked about Donald Trump quite a bit yesterday. It had been a while since I talked about him. But my friend asked me, has he jumped the shark or has he hit like the sweet spot in the populism that exists in this country? And he's going to continue to ride that. And I did not answer my buddy, and I'm going to answer him now. I did not email him back. We emailed back and forth about him listening to the show, but not that specific. I didn't give him a specific answer on that. You know, the way I feel about Donald Trump right now is it seems to me, although he leads in certain places, the national polls, I'm still not convinced that means anything. I'm just not. I think that it's too many people in too many states aren't paying attention. And the only people who I think are seriously paying attention now are the people in Iowa and New Hampshire. And then to a much lesser extent, those other states that come after them in the nomination process. So I take the polls in Iowa and New Hampshire a lot more seriously. Now, I know Donald Trump is doing well in New Hampshire, and he's second in Iowa. But his numbers really haven't moved that much. And so to answer my friend's question and then to tell all of you about it, it's kind of like this. I don't think anybody is hearing Donald Trump and what he's saying. No, whether you think that it is controversial or not, whether it has to do with Muslims and outlawing them from the United States, banning them. Everybody who has been following politics knows what he's been saying. And it's not like they're going to wake up today and hear something he said, and say, now I get it. I don't think anybody's done that. I think that the people who are with him, unfortunately. I don't know how many of them can be peeled away from him. I'm not saying it's impossible. It probably takes a hammer and a chisel to do that. So those people aren't going anywhere. And on the other hand, the people who have been, repulsed, is that a nice word? Is that a good word? Repulsed by Donald Trump the last so many months, I don't think they're suddenly waking up today and hearing what he has to say and say, well, of course I'm wrong. How could I not see the brilliance of Donald Trump? So to answer my friend's question, no, I think it's kind of somewhere in between right now. I don't believe that Donald Trump has jumped the shark because he continues to get good numbers. On the other hand, I don't know if he's hit the sweet spot in populism because I don't see his numbers going up either. He's maintaining a somewhat strong position, not a number one position in Iowa, but a strong position. And he's been maintaining a strong position, a number one position in New Hampshire, although that could change given what happens in Iowa before that. So it's somewhere in between. And I know I hate it when I'm listening to a radio show and an athlete is asked, well, do you think it was the offense or the defense that won it for you today? And then the athlete says, well, I think it was like a combination of both. I kind of hate those answers, but unfortunately, I think today I have to give one of those answers to my friend and to all of you. So he's not losing a lot of people, but he's not gaining a lot of people. And if I were him, I would be concerned about the gaining people part. I think it's safe to say that if Donald Trump wasn't in this race and it was just the rest of the guys and Carla Fiorina, that you would see a front runner, whoever that would be, probably gaining momentum, gaining percentage points. Donald Trump's not doing that. Now, if you want to ask me further about this, I'm going to tell you something that I told you back in May or June when he first jumped in, that I predicted that this would go something like the USFL when he was involved with it in the 1980s with the New Jersey Generals. He got into the USFL for the only reason that he thought that he could blackmail the NFL to take in all those teams. He thought that he could make it, that the NFL would be afraid of the USFL and let those teams in, and then all of those owners, including Donald Trump, would get rich. Remember, USFL was a spring football league, and Donald Trump wanted to change it to a fall football league to go up against the NFL and kind of try to bring them to the negotiation table. You know, art of the deal, right? Art of the deal. Well, we know what happened there. It didn't go very well, and Donald Trump and that gambit, the gambit that he started, lost. He got $1 out of it. Got $1. And that's the way that he does business. It's not that he has a majority behind him. He just wants to put himself into a powerful position, even if it is a minority position, and then try to use that kind of leverage and his name to force other people to do things. That's what he tried to do with the NFL, and he failed. Now, he's going to try to do that with the Republican Party, because I don't see him getting more than 35% of the entire Republican electorate. And that is you want to hear, if you read about these political science fantasies or dreams, not say fantasies, but dreams about a brokered convention, that's the way it'll happen. It won't be because of Marco Rubio or Ben Carson or somebody like that. It'll be because of Donald Trump. And unfortunately, I don't think that it'll go as well for the GOP as it went for the NFL. I think. The only hope that we have is that Donald Trump's ego takes over his behavior, and if he can lose in Iowa, and then it's close in New Hampshire, and maybe he loses in some of these states, he doesn't like losing, that he drops out. That's what you have to cross your fingers for. Because I don't think that he's going to, even though he says makes outrageous statements, that's going to undermine what he's doing. And I don't think that's going to cause people to lose confidence in him. Those people, whoever they are, however many they are, I don't think are going away. Even though I told you yesterday, I think that a lot of his support is astroturfed. However, I should say I was on Twitter for quite a bit yesterday looking at my political stream at Dentzel Domain, my Twitter account, Dentzel Domain. There is a lot of AstroTurf going on out there. Wow. I even commented, if you go back, if you are on Twitter, you find my account, you'll see this tweet that I put out yesterday saying, I'm just amazed. Like Ted Cruz, and I like Ted Cruz. A lot of those people who are posting stuff about him on Twitter are not real. Not real. All the same tweets, just different faces in the little box over on the left. That's bizarre. It's really, really weird. But I'm sure that all the candidates have that, and I think that I read recently Hillary Clinton has a bunch of fake followers. And Donald Trump, I've told you that you look into some of his supporters on Twitter. They just joined Twitter within the last 6 months or last few months. Lot of AstroTurf going on there, and hopefully that is a good sign for us, those of us who oppose Donald Trump. Hopefully. So that's my answer to my friend. That's my answer to you. Unfortunately, it's probably a little wishy-washy somewhere in between, but that's just the way I see it. I'm going to finally touch upon this story that I'm not ignoring it, just haven't been able to get to it. And it's from last week, and it has to do with United Healthcare. The story's probably a week old, but I want to talk about it. And I'm not going to talk about it in the usual sense that everybody else that I've read it has talked about it. It has to do with United Healthcare, and it's the CEO, the people that run that company, that corporation, saying that they may be backing out of Obamacare because of all the money they lost. Now, on usual shows, right at this point, the conservative host would go on and talk about the free market, and I've done that, and they'd say that how Obamacare doesn't work and why it doesn't work and go all the permutations, but I think that you know all of that. I don't want to treat you all as being stupid, because I don't think you are. I also, as I've told you recently, I think at this show, and I always remember there's maybe somebody new to, not just new to the show, but new to conservatism, new to politics, who is listening tonight. And that is always on my mind when I come to the microphone. So instead, I'm going to go off in a little bit of a different direction from everybody else. And I want to set this up by saying, United Healthcare has only been involved with Obamacare for a few years because Obamacare has only existed for a few years. And really, it only has really started to really come into full force within the last couple years. Because we know that Obamacare was passed back before the Republicans took over the House. Remember? So it feels like yesterday, but it's been a while. And so this wasn't a marriage that lasted very long. One of the partners in this marriage between United Healthcare and Obamacare got frustrated very quickly. And being that I put it that way, I think about what I know about marriages in real life, even though I've never been married. But I think that you can maybe attach this to just dating relationships as well. Two people get married and then they get divorced a couple years down the road. What do you usually think? Well, didn't know what they were getting into. Somebody didn't represent himself or herself in the right way. They may have had some skeletons in the closet they didn't tell their fiancé about, and then they end up getting married, and those skeletons come out, and the person's repulsed by them. That's the second time I've used the word repulsed in this show. I don't know if I've ever used that word in another show before today. That's really weird. But we know how that goes. These marriages that only last for a year, 2 years, maybe you think of Britney Spears or Jennifer Lopez or, going way back, Elizabeth Taylor. Just things don't end up being the way the people thought they were going to be. Just to put it very generally. That's the way I think about what I think about when I think of United Healthcare and Obamacare. But I want to go back and I want to know something. Now, we as conservatives, we knew, and we can learn something from this if we care to. We knew back then that this was going to be a boondoggle. We knew that healthcare is going to get worse. There's going to be eventually doctors who don't want to take patients. There's going to be doctors who are retiring early because they don't want to. They're not getting the right amount of money for the services that they are providing. We're creating a situation where a doctor's office becomes a conveyor belt. The doctors are, to make any money, they only can give each patient like 5 minutes. And not to mention all the costs that have gone up. I've told you about my personal experience with my private health care that I pay for on my own. That I have to carry child health insurance on my policy, even though I don't have any kids. None, zero, never had any. Maybe we'll have somebody if I'm fortunate one of these days. Maybe not. Probably not. Who knows? But I have to carry that on my policy. All of these weird and unusual situations that Obamacare has put us all in. And it's put healthcare providers and hospitals and doctors and nurses and x-ray technicians and MRI people all in that very weird position as well. So I have a question. After me saying all of this, why didn't United Healthcare believe us? When we were making these arguments all over the place, and I don't want to hear, well, the media covered that up. I don't want to hear that. Don't pull that on me on this show. You know that's not how I think. Why did United Healthcare do this? Now, you have to remember something, that they are supposed to be, I'm not going to give, for example, these co-ops that have gone out of business in each of these states, several of them, there were at least half of them have gone under now because they didn't get the amount of money they thought they were going to get in reimbursements from the federal government. Now, we told those people that, but the way I look at that is, well, these were people that maybe were new to this. They might have had healthcare backgrounds, but they really weren't used to running a quote-unquote healthcare business necessarily. It's not like some guy who was the head of a hospital quit to start one of these co-ops. So I can understand if maybe they don't take us seriously. They didn't take our words seriously in 2008 and 2009 and telling them what you're getting into is a mistake. I know you're a Democrat and you want to believe it, but you're going to really hate the day that you're choosing to do this. They didn't listen to us, but they're a little bit of a newbie. So what are you going to do? But United Healthcare has been in the healthcare business for what I'd have to believe at least decades. And here, all of us layman conservative people out here, and that's what we are. I mean, there are conservative healthcare experts. For the most part, though, conservatives are not healthcare experts. We know a little bit about economics, though. A little bit. But even if you look at Mark Levin, Rush, and Sean, and all the rest of them, they are not healthcare experts. But we ended up being more correct about what was going to happen with Obamacare than the people who were running these healthcare corporations. How do I want to put that? That got to be a really long sentence really fast. We showed we had more knowledge about Obamacare than these corporations did. How's that possible? Why is it? Because, see, I'm still under the belief that these healthcare places want to make money. And they do. I know that there's political pressure. I know that some of the CEOs of these corporations are Democrats. And I know that they give money to Democrats. But I'm going to guess that Republicans get a lot of seed money, lobbyist money from the healthcare industry as well. Now, why didn't they believe us? That's an interesting question, and I want you to all think about that. I'm not convinced that they just did it for the politics of it, that they felt forced to do it, because now they're going to. I personally think that United Healthcare is going to get out in 2016. When I read this article originally, that's the kind. And this comes from thehill.com, by the way, from last week, and I'll put the link up on edwarddentzel.com. I get the idea that they're not very pleased with what's going on at all. They're looking at it and saying, well, this isn't going the way we thought at all. Why is that? How can they be surprised by that? What was it in the numbers that the government sold them that convinced them to do this? Whereas we, the rest of us out here, looked at those same numbers and said, well, those are a lie. And why is it that we couldn't convince these companies to stay the heck out? This is what we as conservatives, we don't do enough of this. Because this is kind of introspection. This is what good football teams do, good just teams all over. When you lose, you still look at the game tape. You don't just look at the game tape when you win so you can look back and see, oh, look how great we were on that play. Look how great we were on that play. Oh, that was spectacular. You have to look back when you lose, too. And say, oh, we got beat here. Oh, we got beat there. Oh, this block, yeah, it didn't go. Oh, that pass, that receiver should have caught that. Oh, that penalty. Because it's kind of tough looking back and seeing where we went wrong and how we weren't persuasive enough. Because I just don't believe the case, as somebody wants to sell me, that, well, we tried to, but they're all just a bunch of they're just a bunch of Democrat hacks running these health cares. I just don't believe that. I believe they're Democrats, but I don't believe they're so hackish. I mean, they're not so hackish that they're willing to stay in Obamacare and continue to lose money. Right? I mean, if you're truly a Democrat hack running one of these healthcare corporations, then you're going to stick it out. Right? So I don't believe that. So it must be somewhere in between. That we didn't... Yeah, the money looked good for them, but remember, it went bad fast. This wasn't something that we predicted 30 years ago. We didn't tell United Healthcare 30 years ago that, hey, getting involved in Obamacare back in 1985 is going to cause you to lose money in 2015. We told them just a few years ago, and they still got involved. It's interesting. What was it that we didn't do that caused their political inclinations? What caused them to look at those numbers and say, yeah, we can make money on this? And because they've lost a bunch of money. Millions, billions. Big time money. But it's a fascinating, and we can learn from this the next time this pops up with something to maybe alter the way we handle this and the way that we publish our message, whether it's on talk radio, whether it's on a blog, whether it's on Fox News or wherever else. Whether it's by somebody who isn't a healthcare expert within the conservative community, maybe they just need to alter their words. I mean, of course, be truthful, but kind of look back at what went wrong back then and kind of alter it, tweak it, edit, and try harder next time. Now, the issue maybe next time won't be healthcare. Maybe it'll be something else. It will be something else because we know that liberals never stop. So it's fascinating to me. It's interesting situation that we have here. So I just think there's an opportunity there for us to learn from something where we failed and somebody who opposed us not long ago failed, and then us get together with that company, that corporation, that CEO, that board of directors, and say, we're sorry that we weren't persuasive the first time around, but maybe here's something you should try now if you want to try to get that money back. And maybe you need to get together with your competitors. I'm not saying create a cartel or anything, but we need to dismantle Obamacare, or I know you're getting out of these exchanges and everything, but it's still going to be very difficult for you to make money. If you want to stick around as a corporation, if you want to continue to be a business, it's still going to be very, very difficult. We need to dismantle this. What can we do? We want you to make money. We want you to have as many patients as there are in the world. But at some point, we know that we have to be better. And maybe you just need to listen to us a little bit more. No hard feelings about what happened before. But we need to get together with Blue Cross Blue Shield and Humana and Anthem and all of these other companies, big corporations out there who have really gotten stung by Obamacare, because this is costing people's lives. We remember what I've said about why these corporations do what they do and say what they say and don't want to talk about Christmas and this. They are more afraid of the left than they are of us. That's the only reason. They are more afraid of them than they are of us. Now, the problem that we have is that, well, we don't play hardball with businesses. We hate doing that. And that is the good part about us. But liberals definitely take advantage of it. And that could be of what happened in this Obamacare situation, that we have a love for people who go into business and employ people and want to make money and take advantage of our capitalist system. So it's hard for us, I think, sometimes to give those corporations a hard time when they're going along with the government or going along with a bunch of leftists who really, in the end, just want all businesses to be out of business. But these businesses, I think, somewhere have convinced themselves they can placate. They can calm these liberals and government down by going along. And we just have not done a very good job of convincing these businesses otherwise. That actually going along with them is going to hurt them in the long run. And that's a mistake we continue to make. Once again, because they are more afraid of the left than they are of us. And they should respect us. I think that's the part. They shouldn't fear us. They should respect us. And we have to work on that, gaining respect from these businesses. But I got to go to the break. You've been listening to the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio.
Red State Talk Radio, feeding the hunger.
Hey, this is Alfonso Rachel with PJTV, Zo Nation, and the founder and drummer of 20 Pound Sledge. And you're listening to RedStateTalkRadio.com, the dominant force in conservative internet talk radio.
I'm a mom, and just like millions of other women, that's why I own guns. We're responsible, we're law-abiding, and we're everything that makes America strong. Every day we're willing to use a firearm to defend our families. But the media will never tell those stories. If a mom puts a gun to the face of a home-invading thug and makes him run for his life, the story gets buried. But if she's unarmed and murdered, the cameras will be at the scene before the police. It's time for moms like me to speak out. We are the majority. We demand the freedom to defend our families. And we challenge the media to tell the truth about our rights. I'm the National Rifle Association of America, and I'm freedom's safest place.
What does it mean for a country when its citizens turn on the news and expect to be misled? Because the reporters who once served as freedom's fearless watchdogs feel like distant characters in a fading memory. Today, too many journalists are just actors, playing to their boss's script. Why tell the truth when you can sell a lie for more? There's a price to pay for all this dishonesty. If the free press won't protect free people, it's our job to demand they do it. Do the work you say you do. Aim your First Amendment against hypocrisy and corruption like a hammer of the people. Kick down the doors of any leader who deceives us, and never tolerate dishonesty from your own ranks. That's what the good guys demand. We're the 5 million men and women of the National Rifle Association of America, and we will not play along. Join us today.
This is Don Newen with Cowboy Logic Radio. And if you don't go to bed every night absolutely fatigued from trying to restore America from the destruction that is taking place, then you're simply not doing enough. Join me late night Tuesday, early Wednesday, 12:05 a.m. for Cowboy Logic Radio on RedStateTalkRadio.com.
Back at the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. I want to continue just for a moment talking about United Healthcare and continue maybe just for a moment working on that relationship analogy that I created. We know that we've been there. We've tried to talk people we know out of getting married. We thought some of us have lived to regret that. I can remember back in the day, a guy that I knew fairly well was getting married, and I just told him, man, what are you doing? And he said it was a good idea. He ended up being married less than 2 years. That's a true story. I don't pat myself on the back about that, but sometimes some people need the truth. Sometimes it's best to just go along. I guess in our conservative case involving politics and healthcare, sometimes maybe it is just best to sit back and let these healthcare companies and insurance companies drive themselves right into the ground, trying to get along with government and government manipulation of health markets. But there are going to be other times when the best thing that we can do is speak up and not sit back with our arms crossed and just watch the carnage, but try to head that wreck, stop that wreck before it happens. But the key in all of this is how fast it went so horribly wrong. That tells me that it was completely predictable if these companies, and United Healthcare isn't alone, all of them are losing money. They're all getting, we knew that the basis on which Obamacare was created was flawed, young people getting to the market to pay for old people. It's just not happening. So, but we've been there. And we know that sometimes it pays to speak up and tell a friend the truth. Hey, man, I don't think this, you marrying that stripper, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think so. No, I don't think. We've been there. I've been there. In more than one case. Sometimes you say something, sometimes you don't. So let's move on to something else. I want to talk about oil. I've told you, I think a couple times this year, I've become very fascinated with the oil market. The supply and demand, the prices going up and down, all of the different players. The United States being a player in the oil markets now, with Russia involved in OPEC and what they're going to do. Are they going to bump up production? Are they going to pull back on production and what the price is going to do? It has become really fascinating for me. And I know that here in Florida, one of the least taxed states, we don't have an income tax, a state income tax, and it's a lot easier to start businesses here than a lot of other states. But right down the street at the gas station, which is right out here on the beach, which I think it tends to mean that the prices are a little bit more expensive here. It's $1.95 a gallon. $1.95 a gallon. I mean, that price is a great price. And I realized that maybe back when I moved to Las Vegas at the end of the 90s, I can remember the gas being $1, under $1 in 1998 in Las Vegas. But you figure in inflation, not that inflation's doubled in the time, but that 99-cent gas in 1998 would now be, $1.30 or something like that. And that was before 9/11 and all the bigger problems we now have in the Middle East. So, with the rise of China and demand going up, $1.95 in today's terms is pretty good, especially considering it wasn't long ago we were up $3, $4, and in some places $5 a gallon. I mean, that's crazy. How would you like it if all your food dropped in price that much? Now, for real supply and demand reasons, not because of manipulation or deflation or anything, but just because of supply and demand. Just imagine if food prices drop like that. That would be interesting, although it might hurt certain parts of the economy. But that's where I'm going with this, is that you have to realize something, that when the price drops doesn't mean it's great for everybody. It's great for a vast majority of people, but we know that at that price, there are a lot of drillers, frackers in the United States and drillers elsewhere who are really being pushed on those prices. That the price of a gallon or a barrel of oil now is under $40, although I understand that it went up a little bit today. But where I'm also going with this is it's weird that in following it as much as I have this year, you find out this a lot in a lot of financial situations, you really start to wonder if anybody knows anything. Because I can tell you, for example, I'll go to the CNBC site to check the stocks, to check the oil prices, just to see what they're saying. And you will have one alleged financial expert saying that in 2016, the price of gas is going to continue to plummet. And then the next article is from some other oil expert oil market expert, who says that the price of a barrel of oil will be going up in 2016. And they'll both offer these reasons that seem, I guess, fairly plausible. And you just start to wonder, does anybody know anything? Or is it, as some people call the stock market, just a big casino? Just don't know. My instinct tells me, barring some huge disaster of a terrorist type, I think that the price of gas and the price of a barrel of oil is going to continue to go down. But just to show you how much these experts don't know, the reason that oil went up at least a little bit today is because experts had forecasted how many barrels of oil were going to be in the United States today. Considering how much is being used, how much is being drilled for, actually packed into those barrels. They predicted that as of today, that the inventory would be up by roughly 200,000 barrels. So meaning that demand for oil would be a little soft, I guess you might say. Instead, what they discovered today, and once again, the reason that the price of oil, of a barrel of oil, you probably didn't see that this at the pumps, but in the commodities market, the price went up. They were off by over 3 million barrels. In fact, there were 3 million barrels less of oil in inventory than they thought there should be. They predicted they were going to be 200,000 more in inventory. Actually, it's 3 million less in inventory. Now, how can you be off by that much? I mean, I know that how fast does the United States go through 3 million barrels of oil? Probably pretty fast. I don't know. But it's probably not a lot compared to what is being used in the United States. But when you're trying to predict something and you know kind of what the sales are and what's being produced, you should come closer than 303.5 million barrels, right? I mean, if you're off by 1 million, maybe I wouldn't get too crazy about that. But 3.5 million? I mean, it's enough that it's moving the price of oil. So it must be a considerable miss. If people didn't think that prediction was too far off, the price wouldn't have jumped today. It would have stayed about the same what it was yesterday and the day before. But that's not the case. The degree of the miss can be understood by what the price does. And the price went up considerably. Once again, that word you always see in job figures, everything. Unexpected. Does anybody know anything? Or are these people just kind of going through the motions? The more I do this show, the more research that I do, because research is allowed for this show, the more I start to wonder that. I'm not saying these people are stupid. What I'm saying is that either they really don't know the intricacies of all of this, either that, or they can't figure out a way to communicate what they think to the average American. It's one or the other. And of course, you also have to figure in there that there are many people doing those jobs, reporting on markets, whether it's orange juice or pork bellies or oil or gold or silver, whatever, who, well, let's just say they are kind of directly involved in the markets, and they'd probably prefer if the price went this way or that way in the reporting that they're doing. They're not the actual hedge fund managers or anybody like that. They're actually people who go out and try to figure out what's going to happen next and then work for CNBC or Fox Business or Bloomberg or whoever. Well, they have their own investments, right? They'd probably like to see the price go this way or that way. So that has to be figured in there as well. But when you can go to a decently respectable financial site like CNBC and two of their writers. One says that oil is going to go up and one's going to go down, and the other says it's going to go down. And then they freely admit that their predictors of oil inventories said it was going to be this, but they were way off. You just got to just put this big question mark out there and say, does anybody really know? See, what I think that I know about it, even though I am not a market expert, is I just look at OPEC. I see the stories coming out of Venezuela and Nigeria and elsewhere, these smaller, less powerful OPEC countries who are just begging to cut back on production. But Saudi Arabia doesn't want to do that, and it's not going to do that, and we found that out this past weekend. I'm pretty sure, even though I wasn't there at that OPEC meeting, I'm going to choose to believe that information. And then I know that Russia would love the price of oil to go up. And the United States, we've not really said big one thing one way or the other. We know that there are a lot of oil drilling businesses now hurting because of the price going down. But the truth is, really thought that they'd be out of business long before now. We thought they'd be out of business at $60 a barrel or $50 a barrel, but now we're under 40, and they're still drilling away and fracking away and finding oil here and finding oil there. So given all of that, it doesn't seem like anybody is willing to let up. That tells me, and knowing what I think I know about the world economy, which I think sucks, that tells me there's going to be a supply issue. That's what it tells me. Once again, barring any big problem that pops up, and it would have to be bigger than the attack in Paris. It would have to be bigger than what happened in San Bernardino. It would have to be much bigger than that. And I hope that doesn't happen, of course. I'll be perfectly fine if there's never a terrorist attack for the rest of the history of the world. Not just because of oil prices. So, that's what I think I know about it. And that's why I think that oil is going to continue to go down. Unfortunately, I think that this is going to hurt the stock market. I do believe that. You've heard my reasoning regarding that, how I think that it's oil, that in oil drilling, in the oil business, and natural gas business in the United States that's driving the GDP in the country now, because I don't believe it's retail. I don't believe it's those traditional clothing and shoes and movies and everything else, and cars. It's being driven by all of the oil, the huge oil business that has been created. Much against this administration's wishes. And without that oil drilling, I really believe that the economy would be flat, if not negative. I really believe that. So it's going to be interesting, but I don't think anybody's going to let up. I think that Saudi Arabia maybe I think I made this example like a month ago. It's like in a coffin corner, or it's in the death corner, like in flying. You go too fast, you go past the speed of sound and your plane breaks up. You go too slow, if you just back off by 10 miles an hour, the plane falls out of the sky because it has no lift. This kind of seems where Saudi Arabia is right now. That it wants to keep its market share by continuing to produce, but if it even produces more, then the price is going to go down, which means they're going to have even bigger government financial problems. But if they cut back, then the price is going to go up, and those people who continue to produce are going to get to take advantage of those higher prices. And the good thing about the United States in all of this is that we are a huge oil producer now, but it's only a smaller part of our economy compared to all these other countries who are pumping the same amount of oil or a decent amount of oil, and they rely on that much for their government finances than we do, even though we know that in the United States still oil and gas is a decent part of our economy. But our economy is so huge that what we're doing in oil can affect the price, and it causes OPEC to become very, very nervous. I was looking at a chart. I forgot to bring that up from last week about this. It's just fascinating. Just clicking on a country and seeing how much that particular country relies on oil money to run its country, to run its government. It's fascinating. But I think oil is going to continue to go down. I think you see the price, the pumps go down, but I think that you're also going to see a decline in the stock market because of it as well. Let's move on to something else before I go. And I have, 4 minutes, 5 minutes? Irish democracy. Fascinating article at National Review by Kevin Williamson. In Irish democracy, and I get a chuckle out of it because my heritage is Irish and English, that these gun laws that have been enacted, for example, in, I think he said it was Connecticut, and then in California, where the state governments wanted people to turn in their guns, any gun that held over a certain capacity, and nobody did so. Even though it was a law, nobody turned in any guns. And this is what Kevin Williams is something that's been now called Irish democracy, because it must have happened over in Ireland. It's a situation where the people in government enact the law and the people just say, you know what, there are so many of us that, well, good luck enforcing it. Good luck. And there's an example that he gives regarding Mahatma Gandhi, who talks about when the British still controlled India. And he said that there's no way that 300,000 British soldiers can control 300 million Indians, and there was only 300 million at the time. I think it's, a billion now? 300 million Indians, when those Indians decide that they're not going to do anything, that they're just not going to go along. That you can pass all the laws you want, you can threaten us and everything, we're just not going to do it. And we just know there's no way eventually that you 300,000 can control us 300 million. And he ended up being right, and that's why now India has its independence and runs its country the way it wants. And the British got the hell out. Well, that's going on in the United States regarding gun laws. And that's why gun control doesn't work. But this is also kind of a warning that also there's the point that it could be the government, at least at the state government level, they get a little sly about what they're going to do regarding all of this. We already know that bullet prices are up. It seems like the federal government and state governments are buying up a lot of ammunition, and it's making ammunition hard to find. I think that's the reason that, for example, being that I've been doing some gun research, that 9mm guns are getting even more popular because the ammunition is plentiful and it's cheap. And the coincidence is that a lot of course, state governments and the federal government, they don't use 9mm. They may be using 10mm or 40 caliber or 45 caliber. So they're going to try other ideas other than laws to try to get the guns out of people's hands or make those guns inoperable because there's just no ammunition. Very interesting. It's a very interesting article. I love it. I think that probably people don't do this enough. But regarding people's self-defense, you get very, very touchy situation when you start messing around with what people believe their own safety. They may be able to be pushed around regarding Obamacare and illegals and things, but this is one more reason that gun control has not been a winning issue for Democrats for a long time. And we as conservatives have made a lot of great strides in gun ownership. Really have. And it's just unfortunate that we haven't been able to use that template of winning. And so winning as good as it's going to get in politics. We know there's going to be 3 steps forward, 2 steps back in any of this. But we haven't been able to move this template over to other situations. Once again, like talking earlier about healthcare. We haven't been able to move how we win in gun rights over to healthcare because we've kind of been losing that argument in the last few years. So, but I got to go. It's the end of the show. You've been listening to the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio, and I will talk to you again very soon.